morning. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. I hope you guys are doing good. Let me get myself adjusted here. It is Marketplace Monday. I am Pastor Nick. I hope everybody had a great Friday. I'm a great Friday. What is wrong with me? A great Sunday, a great weekend, a great church day, a great family day, all those things. Anyway, we're going to do a little shift in Marketplace Monday. We've been talking a lot about uh, scaling businesses, what you should do, how to prepare yourself. So I want to give you a couple of final closing pointers on that. And then what I want to do is I want to shift into what do we do in scenarios when, we talked about follow through, we talked about all these different things that you need to be. And I know that I always talk in church about looking within, not looking without. But at the end of the day at work, we do have bosses that we work for, quite frankly, that do not do what they're supposed to do not uphold their end of the bargain, do not, they're never on time. They don't keep their word. I mean, you're working for somebody that's, whether a manager or a boss, it's really not mature. Sometimes somebody that's not supposed to be in that position. So what do we do? How do we handle that? How do we react? How do we treat that situation? That's what I want to look at over the next 5 to 6 to 7 weeks. If you've ever had a tough boss, if you've ever been in a situation where people are not doing their part, doing what they say, the company's not following through, I want to help you understand how to deal with that. But we got to always do it from the position that we look within first. Okay. It's easy to talk about outwardly, but can you look inwardly? And before I get going, I do want to finalize a few things on what we were talking about. Over the last couple of weeks, or actually last couple of months, we talked about building a business, scaling a business, all these things about business. I want to leave everybody with one key note, one disclaimer about everything that I said over the last several weeks. All of this takes time. All of this is a process. I like to say it this way. You have to master one before you can grow or manage many. You have to master one. Let me say it this way. You don't master a business in a year. You don't master a business in a year. Maybe I should have Leroy on the show. He bought a business 2 or 3 years ago, and I just did a thing with him about what would you do differently. And I think you'd be surprised at the things he would do differently as a business owner. Why? Because over a couple of years, he learned a lot of things. Doesn't mean he did anything wrong or bad. It's just you learn, you grow, you develop, you evolve, you mature. That's what being a business owner is all about. The one thing that you can never be in business is in a hurry to grow, in a hurry to scale. Being in a hurry to do anything is never a good thing. It just isn't. In a hurry to expand, take on more territory, take on more businesses. It's never a good thing. So keep in mind everything that we learned over the last several weeks. I want to preface it by it takes time. It takes tracking. It takes understanding. At the end of 1 year, you need to write down what are the things you did. At the end of 1 year, you need to look at your business plan from 1 year ago. What went right? What went wrong? You need to revisit. Then you need to do that for another year. After 2 years, 1 to 2 years, you might be ready. You could be ready in a shorter period of time too, depending on the team that you have. If you have a really good team, right? In other words, not yourself, a really good team. You got to build out that team that I talked about so that now you're not just, you can leave the business and the business can run. That takes a year, 2 years. There's no way to develop a team in a year that can run your business and do it successfully. So we got to remember those things, okay? I just want everybody to know, have patience in what you're doing. Amen. So today I want to talk about what do we do, or what do I do if my boss doesn't follow through? What do I do if my boss doesn't? What do I do? What do I do when a boss doesn't follow through that creates frustration? My boss isn't following through, so it creates confusion. My boss isn't following through, so it creates distrust. What about that? You don't trust them, right? The goal is not to react emotionally, but respond with wisdom, respond with clarity, respond with maturity, so you protect, watch this, your growth and your reputation. You got to think about your reputation, right? So again, like I said, we've been talking about these business, being a business owner, understanding your workplace, right? Growing in your role. But today what we want to do is we want to shift this whole conversation. But at the same point, we need to understand that all of us deal with situations at work that are frustrating. They just are, right? They just are. And like I said, the biggest one is, what do I do? What do I do when my boss doesn't follow through? They say something they don't do. They promise something they don't give. They commit to something they're not, they're not going to be involved with. And then it doesn't happen. Now you're stuck, and what do you say? Do I say something? Do I remain quiet? Do I get frustrated? What do I do? So let's go through this real quick today. Point number 1, write this down. Put it in the chat. Don't take it personal. Put that in the chat. Don't take it personal. Sometimes we got to understand the pressure. The first mistake most people make is they take it personal. They think they don't respect me. They think they don't care. They think they just say things and they don't mean them. Now, I'm not telling you some of that's not 100% true. 100% true, but often it's just not that simple. You got to understand, leaders, especially if you're leading a business or a small business, you're juggling many different priorities. Pressure comes from above. You're trying to raise money. You're trying to get money. You're trying to balance the money, right? Deadlines that, when you're worried about making payroll, you're not worried about the deadline you just promised somebody. Because in your mind, getting them paid is more important than you keeping your word about a thing. Gallup shows that managers that operate under significant pressure, right, end up putting pressure on their employees that they don't even realize. So as a manager, you got to be careful of that. But if that's happening to you, sometimes you got to turn it around and look at it from your manager's perspective. Sometimes you got to step back and you got to say, you know what, this might not be about me. It might just be, a lot of things they're dealing with. Especially as Christians, we should be able to look at this. I'm dealing with a lot of this right now and struggling with it. I'm telling y'all. That's why I'm preaching it. I'm struggling with it, right? I'm trying to walk through it and learn about it. Because at my level, this, really, you should really be at a more mature state. Some of these things you should be able to handle now. Some of these things should not affect you like they do people that are just starting out. But it doesn't matter. No matter what the scenario is, you got to have compassion. You got to have understanding, right? So don't assume intent. Seek understanding. That's the first thing. Write that down. Don't assume intent. Seek understanding. Why? Because assumption is the lowest form of knowledge. We know that. What does that look like, Pastor? Sit down with your boss. Ask him a question. Let's say his name is John. John, I called this meeting today, man. I want to talk to you about a couple things. Are you okay? What's going on with the business? Well, what makes you ask that? Well, man, look, I'm not trying to call you out. This is just a private conversation, but Man, last week you promised this and you didn't even show up to the meeting. The week before that, you said you were going to do this. I never heard back from you on it. So I'm just checking in with you, man. That's not like you. I'm just trying to make sure there's not something wrong, man. Something going on that maybe I can help with. That's how you do it. Okay? That brings me to point number 2, and that's what I'm giving you an example of. Bring clarity. Put this in the chat. Bring clarity without confrontation. Bring clarity without confrontation. Here's where the wisdom of God comes in. You don't ignore it, right? But you also don't attack it. Ooh, that's good. Let me say it again. You don't ignore it, but you don't attack it. You bring clarity. Simple, respectful follow-up goes a long way. Man, I'm learning something here. Simple, respectful follow-up goes a long way. One of the things you really can do is use the email system. Document what's not going on. Document the promises that are being missed. Do it in a very respectful way. Don't copy your boss on everybody. But hey, John, you promised the team that you were going to show up to Tuesday's morning meeting and we didn't see you. I'm just checking in on you to make sure all is well. Let's talk later today. That's a respectful follow-up, right? So instead of, you say that instead of said, you said you were going to do blah, 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 right? Hey, I just want to follow up with you and talk about blah, 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 blah. Do you still want to move forward? Do you still want to participate in our weekly meetings, or should I still expect you in our weekly meetings? It's a very respectful way of reacting that puts the ball back in their court, right? This does 3 things. Number 1, it reminds them. So if there's truly an oversight or a scheduling issue, it gives them an opportunity to respond. It shows initiative on your part, and it keeps things moving forward, right? In leadership and communication, understanding these things are very, very important. Matter of fact, in Howard's business review, leadership business review, they highlighted that effective follow-up is a key professional skill. In Harvard Business Review, they highlighted when it comes to leadership and communication that effective follow-up is a key professional skill. I had a conversation last Friday with a couple of guys I'm working with. Man, I recapped everything, put it in. This is what everybody said, right? Write this down. Mature people follow up. Immature people react. Mature people follow up. Immature people react. Last point for today. Control what you can control. Control what you can control. Here's the truth. You cannot control your boss, but you can control your attitude. You can control your follow through. You can control your communication, right? You got to stay consistent. You got to stay respectful, and you got to stay solution focused. When you're building a reputation, that stands out. And over time, that really matters. You got to remember that, right? So remember, you don't grow by fixing your boss. You don't grow by fixing your boss. You grow by mastering yourself. Okay? So here's what we're going to do this week. If your boss doesn't follow through, don't get emotional. Don't shut down. Don't assume the worst. Instead, I want you to follow up. I want you to stay respectful, and I want you to keep things moving. Because how you handle moments like this will determine how people see you. And how people see you, how people view you, how people see you determines in business and in the workplace how far you are going to grow. Amen? I hope this show has helped you. We're going to do this over the next several weeks. Next week, we're going to talk about what do I do? What do I do? Y'all ready? Y'all going to love this one. What do I do when I feel disrespected at work? What do I do when I feel disrespected at work? What do I do when I feel overlooked at work? What do I do when I feel not heard at work? What do I do when I feel taken for granted at work. These are all the things that we want to talk about. Okay? How do we handle these things? How do we grow through them? How do we manage them? How do we develop ourselves in these situations? Amen? So listen, I love you. I love you. I love you. Until Wednesday. Hey, don't forget we got Godfidence tonight, right, Fran? Godfidence is tonight. Pastor Franny and I will be on with the Fullers. Please join us 6 o'clock. Amen? Love you, love you, love you. Till tomorrow, Pastor Nick saying, enjoy, or till tonight, Pastor Nick saying, enjoy life.